right, welcome YouTubers. We're back to the Spartan Boxing Break. Dave, Corling, Joey here again to review what happened last Saturday in the fight between Jose Ramirez and Maurice Hooker. Say hi, everybody.
What's up, boys and girls?
Peace. What's going down?
What a fight. That's the first thing I'm going to say. It had that 80s vibe. I was around for the 80s. I was around to see Wilfredo Benitez face Sugar Ray Leonard and how they had face-off in the ring, and the same thing with Tommy Hearns. And as they were walking in through the crowd, you could see how focused these two guys were, how energized and how ready they were. These guys were ready, man. And in the ring before they started the actual first round, I was sitting there and I started to get butterflies in my stomach because I knew we were going to get a great fight, and that's what we got. We got a fantastic fight.
I absolutely love that fight, and I didn't see it live. I got back pretty late, and I thank God for the DAZN app. Jumped right on it. I avoided Facebook. I didn't know what happened. I saw the results of the Gervonta fight, which we don't have to talk about, and the Gamboa fight. They both won early knockouts, big deal. But I was able to avoid Facebook enough to get Ramirez Hooker on the TV and not know what was going to happen, and I'm so happy the way that turned out. That was great.
Listen,
your prediction held up, so congratulations. Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, sir.
To me, this wasn't a matter of one guy being better than the other. To me, these two guys were just as good, one and the other, and this fight could have gone the other way easily. The shots they were hitting each other, the technical aspect of the fight, the back and forth. It was just one split second that Mo Hooker just lost focus, and he got caught. At the end of the fight, I had the fight 3-2 for Maurice Hooker.
I had it 3-2 the other way.
There were two rounds that I just went, I give up. I didn't even know how to score because they were so tight. If it would have gone another 3 or 4 rounds, we would have had probably fight of the decade at the rate it was going. I don't think that there was any quit on any of the two, and it took somebody to get really hurt and pummeled against the ropes for this fight to get decided, because otherwise, if it would have just kept going the way it was going, none of the two were going to quit. They were just going to keep going and keep pushing forward to try to win this fight. It was amazing.
I think the longer it went, it was going to be better for Hooker. And I didn't have a dog in the fight. I mean, we made predictions, but I just wanted to see a good fight. And I kept it was a bullshit knockdown in the first round. Boxing still needs replay. And you know what? Maybe we'll do an episode one day on how it can be done and why the sport likes to fuck itself in the ass. But it's annoying at this point that every other sport can have it and boxing doesn't. As the fight went on, even though I think most people had Ramirez winning the first 2 rounds and then probably Hooker coming back the next 2 rounds. The 5th round was really close. Like you said, you gave it to Hooker. I gave it to Ramirez. I think he just did a little better than he did in the 2 previous rounds, and it was telling. And then I'm just thinking I just didn't want my prediction to be wrong. I didn't want to hear about #Texas, and I'm like, please.
But
and I like both guys. I don't have a problem with both guys. And then it happened, and it was spectacular. And I actually like everything that Maurice Hooker said after the fight. Right.
He handled it. He handled it with a lot of class, a lot of grace. Yep. I think, to be honest with you, I think that knockdown, right? I think it actually really messed up Hooker's game plan for the rest of the fight. I agree. And because mentally you're like, okay, now I got to catch up 2 rounds, So I think
it's like being in a bat and you're getting a bad strike call against you, and now you're in the hole 0-2.
Now you're in the hole.
And it changes your whole approach, and I think that did that to him.
But if you noticed early on in the fight, even though it ended relatively early, Maurice Hooker even with the pressure that was being levied on him, he looked so comfortable boxing off the back foot, jabbing. I mean, he looked beautiful. It really was beautiful, even though Ramirez was getting to him early on. Maurice Hooker seemed like he was perfectly comfortable with handling Ramirez's pressure, setting him up, running him into shots, kind of setting traps. And this is why I kind of wish that the fight went on a little bit more, because it seemed that Maurice Hooker was starting to get it, but that pressure was undoing him also, because then you kind of saw Maurice Hooker starting to sit down a little bit more. While he was sitting down, of course, it was good entertainment, but it was something that he was kind of doing as a last resort. Yeah, he got caught. This fight hurt me, man. It really, really hurt me to look at.
That was what, you know, he proved my prediction. He helped me out there. I said there was a huge reach advantage.
Yeah.
But because of the pressure that allowed him to get, and Maurice should have never let him in, because when he was outside, he was throwing long hooks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He has a telephone pole jab.
Yeah.
He was throwing really hard, and he caught Ramirez a couple times where I was like, "Oh, this could be the beginning." And it looked like there were some shots that bothered him, but not enough. And he was still able to come forward. And once he was able to get him on the ropes, and he did several times, get him on the ropes, and he crowded him, and he wouldn't let him use his reach. It really fucked up Maurice Hooker. It really did.
Yeah, but you know, and he kept him on the ropes too.
Yep.
It's not like he let Maurice Hooker, you know, turn away and wheel away and get back into the middle of the ring. He kept him there a lot of times for long stretches, 30, 45 seconds. It
almost looked like Maurice allowed him to do that. And why would you allow that?
Well, you know, and that's the thing. That's when I was kind of getting afraid. I'm looking at the third and fourth round, and I was like, you know what, maybe there's a physical strength disadvantage to where Jose Ramirez was just stronger. And, you know, maybe Maurice Hooker, maybe even, you know, he was sitting there resting and maybe trying to let Jose Ramirez, you know, maybe get tired. But at the same time, I think it was a physical strength disadvantage for Maurice Hooker also. Even though he had the boxing advantages, that long, wiry body was kind of his undoing at the end. So,
I don't think it was a strength issue. I think that Maurice was just trying to see what Ramirez had. He did linger on the ropes a bit. But let me tell you, his jab was amazing. It was a power jab.
It looked great.
Him turning his jab into a left hook at the last minute was catching Ramirez. But the most impressive thing that I saw from Hooker were the body shots that he landed. He landed some shots that froze Ramirez, and he didn't really went after Ramirez at that point, but he could have, you know, done some more damage. So,
but the point is, let's go back to the game plan real quick. I think that he did all that stuff and he displayed it and it looked great, but I didn't think he wanted to do it that early. I think he was prepared to go 12 rounds, and maybe he would start getting into that toolbox within like round 7, round 8, 9, you know, in the championship rounds too, when you know, start mixing it up a little bit more.
He just got careless in one moment. He just lost.
Yeah,
just like he said. He
goes
lost
back
focus.
To what we were saying.
Yeah, he lost focus 1 second. He was trying. He said he was trying to mess with his jab, trying to turn it a certain way to try to, you know, play with it. And at that moment is when he got caught with that hook to the jaw, and that was and you know, you have to say Ramirez did a jumping on him was something spectacular. That's how you finish. That's how you finish a fight.
A way to finish.
That's how you finish a fight.
Yeah. That's how you finish them. Yep.
And like you know, we had 2 guys that I don't know the name. Sorry. We had 2 guys die from injuries from fights recently, last 2 weeks. And after the fight, one of the most telling things Hooker also said, I think it was in the press conference, wasn't in the ring. He said, you know, I'm okay with it. You know, 2 guys just died. I didn't want to be the third.
Right.
You know, he had no problem with the stoppage. You know.
Right.
So I think. A lot of times we say, "Oh, they stopped it too early." I don't think that. I think that was perfect. You know,
not this fight.
He was getting bludgeoned on the ropes, and you know there are times where it is too early, and then there's times where some refs let it go forever.
Right. The ref got in there at the right time.
I know.
I like what Maurice did.
I know that the rematch is not going to come right away. It may never come. To be honest with you, maybe it comes at 147, not at 140, because Maurice Hooker is just too big to make that weight anymore. But we still have the guy from Louisiana, Regis Prograis, who and Josh Taylor, who are going to be fighting for the the finals at the World Boxing Super Series, and that winner will probably go and fight Ramirez. So that'll be another hell of a fight to unify the whole division once again in fight. Just a few years, which is amazing. But I have to applaud the parties involved in this. I have to applaud Ramirez for showing up, Mo Hooker for showing up, even though he had weight problems his last fight. I have to applaud Matchroom Boxing and Top Rank for putting this fight together and crossing those promotional and station ESPN and DAZN walls to go and make a fight that mattered for us, the fans.
It's not going to happen right away, like you were saying. It won't, and that's because now Ramirez has 2 mandatories. He's got Victor Postol as a mandatory for the WBC, and he's got Jack Catterall for the WBO. So don't expect. And you know what? If I'm Hooker, maybe I don't want it right away. Maybe I want to go back to the drawing board a little bit and then figure some things out. And you know, maybe he won't get unlucky with a bullshit knockdown. And
I think Hooker would be an animal at 147. I think he would be a monster at 147. Yeah. But then we have an issue that came up also, not this past Saturday, but the week before, where we have another outfit who is pretty much saying, look, if you're not with us, we're not going to show you. We had in the Manny Pacquiao Keith Thurman fight, we had an image, and I'll post it up here in a minute.
I know this image
of the welterweight champions for the WBA, the WBC, and the IBF, and one guy was left out.
Wait.
Hashtag Omaha. One guy was left.
Omaha. Did you pay attention to the picture? Were you paying attention to the picture?
During the fight?
When they showed it.
I vaguely remember it during the fight, but I remember it more from when it was posted on social media, just showing the three champions.
Crawling, hold that thought. You know what it said? It said PBC World Champions.
Right.
That's what it said.
Right.
So Terence Crawford does not fight the PBC. They were promoting their own guys. Should they have shown Terence Crawford? Should they recognize the WBO?
Absolutely.
Should they show?
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I'll tell you why, because DAZN
this
talks
is their
about
show, and they're showing their guys.
That's fine.
I get it.
But that's just not ethical to me. That's not ethical to me when you're a sports broadcaster, when you have a show and you have champions in a division, to disrespect somebody who is also a champion. DAZN does it. They talk about fighters from PBC, even if they don't have a dog in the fight. They actually spoke about the Manny Pacquiao and Thurman fight at one point. They spoke. ESPN does it. They talk about other champions.
I thought ESPN recently left people out when they were talking about certain things.
I've heard them several times. But to see and then one more thing before Corling gets involved in it and defends.
Corling, I'm not wrong though, right? That's what it said.
Whatever.
But look,
let's go.
The other thing.
You're right though.
The other thing that's significant is there was some information come out that it has been said that now Al Haymon and the PBC will not recognize the WBO as one of the sanctioning bodies, and thus will not recognize the champions that are included in the WBO. So fights like Leo Santa Cruz or Gary Russell Jr. a fight between Gary Russell Jr. or Leo Santa Cruz versus Oscar Valdez will never happen. A fight between
they can fight, just don't fight for the fucking belt. That's all.
A fight between Jamal Charlo versus Demetrius Andrade will never happen because Demetrius Andrade is the WBO champion. But listen,
Andrade can say, "I'll fight him." The belt's not on the line. You don't want to recognize it? I'll fight you.
Disrespectful, not just to the fighter. I don't care about the sanctioning body, but it's disrespectful to us, the fans who want to see these fights, who pay the money to watch these fights, whether it's directly through pay-per-views or through memberships or indirectly by buying the products that the advertisers show on Fox or by subscribing.
Or by showing up at the arena.
Like a lot of us do a lot of
that most people have been to in their lifetime.
Right.
So to me, it's almost a slap in the face to see that there's so little consideration and such disrespect towards the sport itself. So what do you guys think about what's going on?
Let me touch on this one first.
Wait, what's the question?
Here's the question. The question is,
go ahead.
Is Al Haymon bad for boxing? Yes or no? Not the fighters. Let's keep this clear. Not the fighters.
This is a whole nother podcast.
Not the promotion.
Yeah,
this is a whole nother podcast. This is an hour episode.
But listen, is Al Haymon at this moment bad for boxing?
I'm gonna need more vodka.
I have some here.
Well, let's let me touch on this one just a little bit, and I'm gonna be real quick. Bob Arum, Oscar De La Hoya, even though we're not talking about Oscar, the WBO is basically Bob Arum's sanctioning body, right? Bob Arum and Frank Warren. I mean, both of these guys have a lot of champions within the WBO.
So you'd say Oscar's sanctioning body is the WBC then, right?
I say that Oscar doesn't matter. We're not even talking about Oscar.
Okay.
But the only reason I bring
his name up, that's all.
Yeah, right. The only reason I bring him up is because Bob Arum and Oscar De La Hoya took Al Haymon to court. Instead of trying to compete, which would be good for boxing, right? Instead of doing that, they took him to court to try and eliminate him and get rid of him. The judge ruled otherwise. The WBO also is the sanctioning body that took Al Haymon to court as well. I do not expect, even though we can all agree that it's good for boxing if they recognize all champions, because that's the precursor to unification and all of that. That's fine. But when you try and handle something in the courtroom, how am I supposed to, if I'm Al Haymon, how am I supposed to operate in good faith with Bob Arum, with Eddie Hearn, with Oscar De La Hoya? How am I supposed to operate in good faith? That's the only thing that I'm getting at. This is bigger than, the welter's trying to avoid Terence Crawford. And it's bigger than that.
Let me tell you something. Wait.
It's bigger, and it's only bigger when it's one of Al's bigger fighters. When he can throw away a Ruiz to fight Joshua, go ahead, no problem, because he didn't expect him to win. He was
speculative.
Right, exactly. Whatever.
Right. Okay.
He was expendable.
Hey,
he was expendable, is what he was.
I was listening.
Everybody's expendable if you want to get in this.
But he's worked with. We're sitting on the boxing board on Facebook, and we see many examples when Bob and Al have worked together. Now all of a sudden, I don't want to work with you when it comes to Bud and Spence, because you know what? He's one of my biggest assets. So now I don't want to chance it. Now I don't want to work with the WBO. Now I don't want to work with Bob Arum. Come on.
Right.
So what are we waiting for? Are we waiting for these guys to get so old
is what it is.
or get so inactive that when they face somebody who's active, even if they're older than them, they get schooled in the ring, like just happened 2 weeks ago? I mean, if that's what he's waiting for, because that can happen not just to Keith Thurman, it can happen to Spence too. It can happen to Gervonta Davis. It can happen to any of the guys that are fighting such low-level competition or just not fighting enough that when they actually do face somebody who is in top form and who has the tough fights, they get routed or they get showed up.
Let me say this real quick, and I have to always bring people back to the center. No promotional outfit is putting on the best fight the best every single time. People are fighting bad competition all the way across the board.
Yeah, but one blatantly holds.
Now Bob is going to push this whole issue of mandatories for Jose Ramirez.
The thing is though, but this Jose Ramirez Maurice Hooker fight that we just watched last week, let's not act like this is the norm across the board in boxing. It's not the norm.
I'm gonna make
but
that
it
argument.
wants to be the norm. We have the World Boxing Super Series putting on of the finals right now, and it's the best fighting the best. And whoever wins in that matchup is going to come and fight Ramirez next. So,
but I mean, how many
fights are
tournaments
getting
have
done?
we really?
These fights are getting
done. How many
done,
tournaments have we really had?
They're getting done outside of the PBC.
You're right.
If it were, if it were up to the WBSS, they would happen every 6 months because that's their model. They would have tournaments in every weight division as often as they possibly can. They had back-to-back cruiserweight division tournaments.
Which a PBC fighter was in, Andrew Tabiti, who got
brutally
knocked out by Dorticos.
Yeah, he's not a PBC fighter. He's a Mayweather Promotions fighter.
No, he's a TMT fighter. Okay,
there's a difference.
Yeah, you're right.
But let me just answer back to why shouldn't Al work with these guys, even if they've gone to court, even if they've done this or that. Let me tell you, I was listening to Chris Mannix's podcast in the car a couple of days ago. Shout out to Chris Mannix. And he had Bob Arum and he had Eddie Hearn on. And Bob Arum was talking about how back in the day when he started promoting, Sports Illustrated was doing a piece on him back when Sports Illustrated was renowned. And everything he thought was going fantastic. And then when the piece came out, it turned sour towards the end, knocking Bob Arum and all this, and he couldn't understand why. Later he finds out that it was Don King. Apparently the writer owed money to Don King, and Don King said, "I'll forgive the debt if you put a bad piece on Bob Arum." But you know what? In the end, it all worked out because everybody congratulated Bob Arum about the piece they did on Sports Illustrated because nobody really read it. So he realized then that, look, even if bad things happen, you can turn something bad into something good. He was talking about the promotion between Mayweather and Arturo Gatti. And Arturo Gatti didn't show up to the first conference because he was out drinking the night before. So he went ahead and took that and turned it around and said, these guys hate each other so much that they don't even want to do the presser together. So we're going to have 2 press conferences instead of just one. And he had to do it on the fly. But the point is that many times after that piece was written in Sports Illustrated, Bob Arum and Don King did business together because what's important for the promotional companies is to do the right business. And if it's good for both and good for the fans, and they know it's a business enterprise. But when you start getting your feelings hurt, when you start getting your feelings hurt, oh, they took me to court. I'm never gonna work with them. Oh, they said this about me. They say it's like freaking middle school girls. I mean, come on. That leaves us.
Because he has worked with him.
That leaves us.
Has worked with him.
It leaves us,
that's why
the fans, out in the cold. And how do you support a product from an entity that just doesn't give a crap about you? And that's my question. And that's why I ask, is Al Haymon, even though he may be great for the fighter and gets the most money for the fighter and has the mentality of a manager or an agent or in that
and
same
puts on
line,
the best shows.
I got a question for Corley because he kind of justified what Al was doing.
And puts on good shows, and he put on a very good fight between Thurman and Pacquiao. You have to give him the props for that. But how do you support somebody who doesn't really respect the fan, who is just looking out for the fighter and is looking out for themselves?
Justified what he said or what he's doing. Are you okay if Spence Bud never happens because he doesn't want to recognize WBO?
Absolutely not. But I'm not going to
game over.
But I'm not going to be naive enough. I have to put this in here.
The court, all the stuff in court is business.
But
it's still business.
Once again, though, I'm not going to be naive enough to think that Spence Bud isn't happening because Al Haymon doesn't want to recognize the WBO. Like I said, it's bigger than all of this, man. It's bigger than all of this. There is a reason, and that root is because these guys didn't want to compete initially. Regardless of if you say this is schoolgirl stuff, yes, it is. It is petty. Like, I'm going to agree. It's petty. It really is. But at the same time, how do you expect when you have a thriving business standing alone? Yes, it's bad for the fans. That's fine. But how do you expect to operate in good faith and forget that everything else happened when you have literally 2-3 years ago people over here taking you to court and trying to go around?
I don't know about thriving. I don't know about thriving.
He's worked with him a bunch of times since then.
I don't know about thriving.
Maybe no, you're right.
Maybe surviving, but I don't know about thriving. So let's keep that in perspective, because they're having to depend on the pay-per-view model so that they can continue to put on these fights. A lot of these fights, to be honest with you, Spence Porter is really not a pay-per-view fight. Spence Porter is a good Fox fight or a good Showtime fight, and
that is a stream the fuck out of it fight.
If Pacquiao Thurman did 500,000 pay-per-views, this is gonna do less. Period. It's gonna do less.
Yeah.
So it's not gonna do less. It's gonna do a lot less.
Yeah. I'll buy 300,000 though myself. I got it.
Yeah, good for you. Remember the reason that Spence sold 360 with Mikey. We're gonna see how much of that was Mikey. Come Sean Porter. Watch.
So here's the thing to our viewers. What do you think? Do you think that Al Haymon's good for the sport of boxing? Do you think that the PBC is good for the sport of boxing? Do you think that ignoring Crawford, for example, is good for the sport of boxing? Leave your comments below and let us know. Remember, subscribe, hit a notification bell, and hit the like button, and share this video. We'll be back for our next episode of the Spartan Boxing Break. So long for now.
Peace.
Adios, fuckers.